authors they were so pissed off that some third party without consent would take someone's book and run it through these detection programs, which are not 100% accurate. They deal in probabilities. And then basically I think witch hunt is the common term that was used to describe this. And there was this concern that authors' careers will be tanked because of AI detection software. This is why I mentioned that readers were the first to notice, and as far as I know, they were not using these softwares. A lot of the tells were pretty obvious, and there was also the fact that the author herself came out and said, well, my editor, acquaintance, friend, whomever edited the book with AI, so that's why you see AI in there. And who knows how true or not true that is.
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Elly Blue, the vice president of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we welcome back Jane Friedman of The Bottom Line, reporting on publishing, so the rest of us get to do the deep dive by proxy. This week, we are going to talk about how AI detection and or otherwise is all anybody wants to talk about in publishing.
I think the catalyst was Shy Girl by Mia Ballard. So for those who've been in a cave, this was the novel that Hachette picked up. It was initially self-published. It was already released in the UK last year. The US division still had to release it this spring when the New York Times ran an article saying, oh, look at what this big five publisher is doing. They're releasing a novel that it was readers. I think this is really important and what people miss. It was readers who identified patterns of AI writing in the book. They did not use AI detection. Some readers, especially the readers who read in Kindle Unlimited, where there's a high volume of genre fiction, where there's, I think, a higher prevalence of AI-generated material. Once you're in that ecosystem as a reader, you start to pick up on the signs, right? So someone did this 90-minute video on YouTube analyzing why there were all these signs of AI writing in the book, and that started to spread around on subreddits, and there was all of this discussion about how does the publisher not see this for what it is? Which raised all sorts of questions, by the New York Times and others, like, Hachette, do you understand what you're doing? Did you think people wouldn't notice? So anyway, by the time the New York Times article came out, Hachette had decided to pull the book. It's an open question whether they had decided prior to being queried by the New York Times or after. But I think people are wondering, well, if they did know there was AI in it, why did they think we wouldn't notice? And then there are people who think, well, they probably just didn't know. And then there are others who say, well, it was self-published, it didn't go through any big editing process anyway. And then comes, all of the concerns about AI detection software, because one of the things the New York Times did was, in collaboration with Thad McIlroy, this person who does a lot of AI consulting and educational programming, he's the one who tipped off the New York Times, and he had run that book through AI detection software, several of them, including Pangram, which I think it's fair to say the best of the best. It's more accurate than some of the others that I've experimented with.
And now I hadn't heard from the people that were pissed to see that they think that their book could be put through AI detection software. But you know what? We put every manuscript that comes in through our doors through it. And people are pretty pissed about that too. I mean, the people who it flags positive for AI are anyway.
Right.
Not all of them, but it definitely, it's like a tender point. I don't know. And it's like, we used to just have to deal with boring old plagiarism.
Right.
Still do.
I mean, to a lesser extent though, because I feel like AI fills that need much more easily and honestly more with more legitimacy. You know,
So-
like everyone knows plagiarism is wrong, but most people think like it's easy to think like, well, AI is like a valid tool that everyone uses. And it's the future.
So for me, from like an industry standpoint, the other fascinating thing that happened right on the heels of this, again at the New York Times, a reader said to the New York Times, "Hey, did you realize that one of these book reviews that you ran by this established journalist author seems to plagiarize a review in The Guardian?" And so the New York Times conducted an investigation, and the reviewer immediately confessed to using AI for his review. And I happened to find this conversation he had with a colleague. His colleague posted the conversation on his Substack, I'm sure with permission of the guy who used AI, where he says, I was really stupid. Basically, I naively used this tool to smooth and expand my review. And
Okay, to write it.
and it did. If you compare the two reviews, you definitely see what I would ordinarily call plagiarism. That's what it looks like.
Our industry is run by billionaires and conglomerates.
At Microcosm, we wanted the freedom to independently sell our books, easily pay royalties, manage our inventory, and understand our business all in one place.
That's why we've been using our own software since 2001.
Now, we want to share it with you.
Working Lit is the only business success software that is created and owned 100% by publishers for publishers.
Join Working Lit and get the agency you need to help your business grow.
Visit workinglit.com to try it for free.
And so it kind of begs the question for me, like, even if you're not using AI detection tools as a media outlet or as a publisher, there might be many reasons you don't use it, I think, but there are also many reasons to use it. Would you not want to start using plagiarism detection? Because I think that also could become more prevalent. I mean, who knows what that guy did? I don't know. But I think one of the little known facts about that situation is that The Guardian has a licensing agreement with OpenAI, one of the major AI companies that offers ChatGPT. So from my perspective, that actually makes it a little more likely it could pull in or reference or quote or cite something that was already published, since he asked the AI to expand, which, P.S., don't do that.
It will anyway. It will even if you don't ask it to.
So yeah, I have a lot of sympathy on like all sides for everyone. I understand authors don't want things done to their work without their consent. I understand the problems of witch hunts. I understand that publishers can't just take authors' word for it because authors are not being honest about their use. So it's a real mess.
Yeah.
So I think about it in sort of two ways. Partly is the dishonesty piece. And I think, and maybe like not to excuse it, but I think a lot of people don't realize how much damage it's doing to their work,
Yes.
Yeah.
and the impact, both legally and structurally, but also like editorially and creatively.
Yeah.
And so we find that generally how somebody responds is very indicative of essentially like how innocent they are in this. A truly innocent person would be just as horrified as we are, especially if they're a writer, and somebody who is very defensive, it's kind of clear what happened there. But I think about this like in terms of 50 Shades of Grey, like this current case where like everybody knew it was a bad book. They published it anyway. They sold the rights to Random House. They're like, this is a bad book that people love. How are we going to not screw up this bad book by making it into a good book when people will probably not like it anymore? And I'm guessing that's the same thing that happened in this case. Just spitballing.
Right. So this has been another interesting area of discussion among people observing that one of the reasons the book was picked up was because it was quite successful with a certain readership. And for those who don't know, this is a horror book. It's a specific subgenre called femgore, which is kind of trending. It's, and publishers love to swoop in and pick up something that's already working when it's been proven in the market. And but there's a lot of, in genre fiction, there are varying degrees of artistic quality. There are lots of things that succeed with readers that are not at the height of literature. So there was just a lot of argument about whether or not it was a bad book or not, and what should the publisher were they doing a service to the author by just re-releasing it without any further due diligence on editorial. And I think that's a really challenging conversation to have. And I have no idea. I think there are a lot of people who were sympathetic with the junior editor who picked up that book. I don't know anything about her. I have no idea what she's facing down right now. But certainly if you're a junior editor caught in the middle of this, I would not want to be her.
I mean, I feel like we're also kind of in this moment, like, because publishing moves so slowly, like we only started screening for AI about a year ago, and we've like learned and become more sophisticated in how we do it since, but we still are working with a lot of manuscripts that came in longer ago than that, or like the contract was signed longer ago than that before we were talking about AI. And it's like, right. I can totally see how like the slow pace of publishing is like getting people like, they probably screen everything that comes in now, but are they screening their whole back catalog? No,
this deal was done many months ago. And AI progresses so quickly.
We built this software from scratch to solve our own problems starting in 2001.
It's not only the reason for our survival, but the reason we've been a Publishers Weekly fastest growing publisher 3 years in a row.
Now we want to share it with you.
Join Working Lit and get back the agency to understand your publishing business, market and sell your books, and painlessly pay royalties.
Working Lit. Doing the math for publishers.
Visit workinglit.com to give it a try for free.
I really enjoyed reading the comments at the New York Times on the Shy Girl case specifically, because you found like kind of all of the opinions from people about AI and its entrance into publishing and writing. Some people saying, well, if she used AI as a tool to produce a book that people enjoyed, who was harmed? Why not? And then other people saying, this is subhuman. Why are we allowing this? So it's, the
whole spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking with another publisher who was talking about their AI use, and they were like, we would not ever put anything generated by AI in a book, but we do use it for like evaluative questions. Like they publish fantasy novels, and they were like, we'll like ask AI to go through and check to make sure like there's continuity with eye color and the characters and that kind of thing. And I was like, that I honestly I want to hate that, and I don't hate it. Like that actually seems like a useful way to use it.
I know I've been on everybody's case for the past year to be like, tell me one applicable use where you've like created efficiency, and I'm like, there it is. They have found ways,
But then I'm like, also like, so long as they're not then telling the AI to go fix that, because the AI is going to do more than just
yeah.
And it's not
I use AI a lot for administrative work and coding on my website, but the times that I've tried to use it as an editing tool, it's so unreliable and inconsistent, and it's not making the choices I would make. And again, maybe it will progress. I'm sure it will, but as editing, that to me is like really at the bottom of the totem pole. I would like it not to be on the totem pole at all as far as in the publishing. I just don't, although I'm saying that, and I just heard a conversation yesterday. It was about the intersection of AI and libraries and also academic markets, which are dealing with this. They're both called canaries in the coal mine. Libraries in the academic university market, because AI can generate so much material that then needs to be peer reviewed, and there aren't enough humans to review the AI generated
What a great
academic
efficiency.
scholarly.
But AI could evaluate the AI generated submissions and peer review itself. And I feel like the results would probably be comparable.
I feel like there's a whole genre of TikToks where people each have an AI client on their phone and they have them talk to each other.
It feels like that's where we're headed.
Not to make this solely about entertainment, but it is often the thing where I am often caught in the conversation in a way where I'm like, did you not evaluate if this is an efficiency or not, or if this is just a fun toy for you?
Yeah. I mean, so kind of on a final note, I guess, I think authors are often really struggling about, we've talked a little bit in past episodes about publishers using AI, but do we have advice for authors when it comes to AI?
If you're working with a publisher, you need to get your hands on their AI policy. I think most publishers by now have something that they can say or give you. You need to be upfront and communicate every single way you've used it. I would say, generally speaking, most publishers don't consider it problematic if you're using it for brainstorming or to helping you do research the way you would use Google to help you find sources. Most publishers would say use the paid versions because they are more reliable if you're going to be doing things like that. And I don't think that makes publishers nervous as long as the authors are being upfront about what they're doing. I think where they get really concerned, obviously, is with the drafting, with the editing. I can't tell you the number of horror stories. You've shared some of those with me of people running their manuscript through AI for that last pass editing, and it's...
Yeah, don't do that. Don't ever do that.
It's not making it better.
I mean, my advice to authors is be okay with turning in rough work. It's easier for a publisher to edit work that's rough than it is for us to edit work that's polished. Right. And we aren't judging you based on the quality, the finished quality of the manuscript you turn in. We just want the book to be good, and we are skilled at making it look good and making you look good. So trust us to do that. Don't try to rely on AI to do that.
Yeah, I've even spoken with freelance editors whose clients, they're paying the editor thousands of dollars. And then they'll just, for the hell of it, they'll run the manuscript through AI before sending in their last, what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you do that, just save a version.
Just throw it in the trash when you're done afterwards, if you're going to do that. And it'll save you some time.
Good advice. All right, on that note, anything else to say about AI detection?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.